Hello, everybody. This is Alia Jamal, the love coach. We are meeting here live again for another love circle. And today we are going to talk about how to release guilt and shame. Guilt and shame are two things that exist within us. They take away a lot of our mental space, and they also take away a lot of our energy. So my goal with today's conversation is that by the end of it, you'll be able to either completely release guilt and shame, or you would know how to like what to do in that moment when you're experiencing it. So first, let's look at guilt. Guilt says that's how guilt feels like, that I did something wrong. So it's more like we are blaming ourselves that we did something wrong. But this is an unconscious thing that we do. So it's very important to keep in mind that unconsciously you are doing it to yourself. It's not conscious. And when unconsciously you're just having that conversation within you, sometimes you're not even aware of it. It's going on. And what we have done in today's day and age, we have normalized feeling guilty. Every mom that I have come across would say, I feel guilty. And what do I do with mom's guilt? We have just normalized mom's guilt. It is not normal. Yes, it is normal when you have not done self-development. But once you learn how to come closer to your true self, there's no more guilt there. And that is what I'm going to show you today. So let's get into how do we even get into feeling guilty? Where did we even learn it? So if you look at it, no child is born in this world feeling guilty. When we are little, we don't even know what guilt is. We would do all kind of horrible things to our parents. We'll keep them up. We'll cry every 5 minutes. We don't feel guilty for doing all of that. Whenever we need something, we get the attention. There's no guilt there. But what happens as we grow older, our parents introduce guilt to control and manipulate us because their parents used it and their parents used it. This is a generational thing that is going on. So when a child, let's say, child spilled milk, and the parent would say, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with your fingers? Why can't you hold it? So the child is thinking, there's something wrong with me. I did something wrong. I'm slipping into shame right now because they go together so much. It's easy to mix them. So I did something wrong. That's what the child is going to feel in that moment. And shame comes right underneath it. There is something wrong with me. I could have done something wrong only if there's something wrong with me. I'm not a good kid, or I'm not a good boy, and that's why I am doing this. And I get to see this, when I was little, I didn't know that, but with my son, I get to experience it very closely when he's going into guilt, and now he's going into shame, because we do have deep conversations afterwards. I try to help him come out of it. There's 2 episodes that I have seen, and the pain that I see in his eyes when I'm feeling that maybe I was not able to see it. It is very painful to feel guilty or feeling shame, no matter where you are in your life. It is a very painful experience because it attacks your foundation, that you did something wrong and there is something wrong with you. So that's why it's very important that we don't keep that kind of toxic inner environment so we can live our full potential. So back to when the guilt and shame gets introduced, it's a control mechanism. You want to control anybody, whether it's a child or an adult, like, anybody who comes under a healthy mind. Not talking about extreme cases here. You can always use guilt and shame, and you will be able to control the person pretty much 100%. It is a very powerful, very, very powerful. So what happens when we get older, we take the same guilt and shame, the same built-in mechanism that is pretty solid within us because parents used it on us for a couple of decades. So then when we are adult, we use it against ourselves. When I say I'm feeling guilty, no one is making me feel it. No one is saying anything to me, but that's how I learned to regulate myself. And then I'm stuck with it. Then I'm like, I don't know what to do with it. We have mom's guilt, we have this guilt, we have that guilt, and we just feel like, oh, that's just how life is. Just move through it. Just deal with it. Don't pay attention to it. But unconsciously, at the back of our mind, this file is open that is saying there's something wrong with you. You're doing something wrong. That's where we leak a lot of our energy. And I like to say it leak because it's literally you're throwing away your energy with that unconscious file being open there. And then also it takes up a lot of our thinking space too. So that's when we feel tired, we feel mental fog, and we're just like, I can't really think straight because there is something going on at back of our mind where we are losing a lot of energy that we could be using to create our life. So let me show you the control mechanism. And the reason we want to control, the reason our parents want to control us, and then we want to control ourselves, is safety. We want to feel safe. If a parent cannot control a child, the parent does not feel safe. Talk to anyone who has a teenager, and when they get to a point where they're not able to control them and the teenager can go in and out of the house whenever they want, the parent starts to feel very unsafe. And that's where a lot of fear and anxiety starts to come in play. And then we just label it, oh, you must be going through a lot because you have a teenager. Because what's happening? The parent is going through a training of letting go. The parent has to now learn how find safety within them and not just find safety through the control that they had on that child. So all of us, we are looking for safety unless we have really mastered it within ourselves. So instead of looking for safety in how can I control myself, how can I control other people using guilt and shame, the goal is to find that safety within us. So I'm just going to put guilt and shame over here too. Guilt and shame, they are used to control. And control is for safety. So the truth is, the universal truth is, there is no safety outside of you. Anything can happen at any point. Even if you're in the safest place in the universe or in the world, a storm can come. A tornado can come in your area. It can blow away your whole house. Anything can happen. That is the truth. But we live with an illusion because we do live in, most of us, we do live in safe parts of the world, and nothing really happens unless you're watching news. So we live in this illusion that, the safety is coming from outside of me. And I need to make sure everything stays same, it stays safe. But the true safety only exists within you. Only you can give the meaning to everything that this is safe and this is not safe. But before we get into that, so what is the truth here then? If there's no safety, then what is it? So when we realize that there's no safety, we are actually surrender into our divinity. Let me see. You can still see it. So the truth of this universe is that we all are a divine being, an energy that manifested in this body, and now we all are having a human experience. If instead of focusing on safety, I need to be safe from outside things, if you just started focusing on, I'm a divine being, and let me focus on that a little bit more. Let me surrender into that way of being. You start to get connected to something bigger than you, and you start to feel safe in that divinity that exists within you. that I am something bigger than that. Hey, even if something happens to my body, I'm still going to live. Now, that is a level that, you will work through self-development to get to that level. And, that is most of the people seeking. It's called self-realization. And then there's God realization, and there's all different levels. But that is the route. If wherever you are right now, and you just sit with yourself and you be like, you know what? There's no safety outside of me. Anything can happen at any time, and I cannot control it. I cannot control it. First, in the beginning, it's going to make you feel very unsafe. You might even start panicking, but just breathe through it. Let this awareness get to every single cell of your body. It's all about becoming aware instead of just going into that sleep mode that we are living our life with, just, one task to the other. You really sit with yourself and realize, in truth, there's no safety outside of you. I am in my home office right now, and the door is locked, and this is a pretty safe neighborhood. I can either look at outside and I can start like, how can I make it more safe? I can get paranoid that way, or I can just surrender into my own divinity that I am safe being, that divine power that exists in this body. That is me. That's when I'm going to take safety from outside to inside, and I am going to start feeling safe there. So once I feel safe, then there's no need to control. And if there's no need to control, there's no need to have guilt and shame. So this is how this pattern kind of work, this behavior pattern called guilt and shame. But here's the tricky part. Our nervous system gets addicted to it. When you're bashing yourself, when you're saying things to yourself, making yourself feel guilty, there's specific chemical release in your system. So your nervous system physically it's changing, and it gets used to that. That's why guilt is so addictive. Our parents did it to us, and now we are doing it to ourselves. And we'll keep doing it. We'll teach it to our kids. Right now, I am working through like really, really hard that I don't pass it on to my child. I'm really working on that. And I can see firsthand the kind of self-discipline it requires, where I hold myself and not try to guilt trip him on eating vegetables, on this and that. There's so many things that come out of our mouth, especially as a parent, without even thinking. And we feel like, I have to do this. How else do I make this child do the things that I want them to do? That requires, again, a lot of growth as a parent. If I am making myself feel guilty and that is my mode of operation to get things done, I'm going to teach my child the same thing, whether it's verbally or with energetical impression. They are sponges. They are going to absorb whatever I am putting in myself. They are going to absorb it too. So they are going to learn how to use guilt and shame to manipulate themselves. But what happened in long term? If I am feeling guilty, and if that is my way of being, I don't get to my true self. I don't get to my full potential. Now you'd be like, but there's so many people we know they are very accomplished, and they feel guilty all the time. Like, that's just part of being human. There's a difference in living as your true self, as your true potential, versus just achieving a lot of outer success. This, what we are talking about, it's inner success, where you can just slip into your own existence, where you feel as light as a feather within you. And when we look at generally success, we look at like, who has a lot of money, so many businesses, the kind of place they live in, the kind of car we drive in. We look at all that and we're like, oh, that person is so successful. Of course, they got there by doing something. That's outer success. They could be very successful outward and miserable inside because they never learned how to actually drop guilt. So you can ask any person who went from like, barely making the ends meet to being a millionaire. They would tell you that yes, money can, add to life. It can, bring in luxury or anything, but emotionally, it does not do anything for you. If you were anxious when you were making 100K, you're going to be anxious when you're making a million. It does not changes anything. That is the work we have to do. So now, why do you even want to let go of guilt and shame? So first of all, you're not going to access that deeper part of you that is pure love. It's energy of love. If think of it this way, I really want you to put this graphic in your mind. Think of it this way, that you have a baseball bat in your hand and you're just hitting yourself with it all day long. That's what guilt does. You're hitting yourself all day long with it, and then you're like, oh, but I love you. Does that even make sense? So guilt and shame creates this inner turmoil within you where you feel like you're torn. You don't know which way to go, which one is the real you and which one is just the you that was created because control was very important in your childhood. So first you have to really realize what guilt and shame does to you. It's a form of self-attack. The more you're attacking yourself, the less you'll be able to stand tall and share all of your light with the universe, or even get to the purpose that's within you that you want to live. So at some point, or even in general, the kind of environment you have inside of you, do you want to be living with the push and pull of guilt and shame? Or do you want to feel like I can be whoever I need to be? I don't really care if I got this done or that done, but I am going to accept myself just the way I am. So that is the place that we are trying to get. And again, each and every one of us will have to look at our own inner environment. No one can see what's going on inside of that. Outwardly, you could be a very developed, polished, positive person, but inside of you, you could be struggling with a lot of guilt. So this is us coming to a place. Why do you even want to let go? Because it is creating a toxic environment within you. It is taking away your energy, and it's just a control mechanism that you were taught. So now here's the step that you can take when it comes to guilt, to let go of guilt. Every time you feel guilty, every single time you're feeling guilty, remind yourself there's no safety. Because in that moment, something is happening that's making you feel out of control. You want to gain control because safety is so important to your nervous system in that moment. But when you remind yourself, hey, there's no safety, you're breaking that pattern, you're breaking that thought process, and it's almost like a big inhale and then exhale after that. Oh, there's no safety. Then why am I feeling that way? So first start introducing that concept that there's no safety, and then look for what is making you feel unsafe that you want to manipulate yourself to safety. So usually, let's say, I'm going to use the example of weight gain. So let's say you already have about 10 pounds that you want to lose right before your wedding, which is maybe 3 months away, right? That's the goal you set. You're like, I'm going to do it. And then you saw your favorite dessert. You were not supposed to eat it according to your diet plan, but then you did. Went ahead and ate it. So as you're done eating it, you're feeling this guilty within you. You're like, why do I do this to myself? Why didn't I stop? Why this? Why that? So you're really going down the rabbit hole of criticizing yourself. But in that moment, what are you so afraid of? What is making you feel unsafe? So the thought process, the unconscious thought process that's making you feel unsafe is that you're not going to lose weight and maybe your dress is not going to fit. That is the fear. And your current behavior just added to that behavior. And now, because the fear is more, it feels very unsafe. Your system is under attack right now. So if you just take a moment and be like, you know what, I really wanted to eat it. And maybe tomorrow I'll cut something else out. Maybe I'll go extra hour or so to the gym. And maybe even if my dress doesn't fit, I'll just get it, altered or something, maybe a month before that. Instead of being so harsh with yourself, compassion is what is going to replace the guilt. Being aware, asking yourself, like, what is it that I am so afraid of? What is it that's, oh, I erased that. What is it that's making me feel unsafe right now? And introducing compassion for yourself. Because what is compassion going to do? What goes with guilt is, what's wrong with me? Shame. Because we were taught when we were little kids, just because you spilled the milk, that means there's something wrong with you. So just because you're eating dessert when you're not supposed to, it's not just that you did something wrong, also there's something wrong with you. So what something wrong with you attacks? It attacks you, your own existence, who you are as a person. It pretty much, like, it's taking away your foundation. I know who I am. And if someone comes in and say that you're a bad person, you're this and that, if I have not learned how to live without guilt and shame, for that moment, that person is going to take away all my power. And I'm going to feel powerless and helpless. Why? Because they took away the foundation. And it has taken me a long time, because I have heard a lot of stuff about a lot of things in my life, and one of them is being um, about my parenting or my parenting style. I have heard a lot, you're not a good mother, you're a bad mother, because the other person just wanted to feel the way they wanted to feel. And there was a time that it will get to me, and I'll just give away all my power. I'll start to defend myself, or I'll go in my mind and start doubting myself. Is that true? It did take releasing or making the decision to start living guilt-free and shame-free, that now someone can say anything to me. And sometimes, like, on social media, if you're reading some of the comments, they can be they could be coming from people who don't really realize that they're talking to another human being on the other side. They just want to spew stuff out. It doesn't phase me out anymore, because I am not an active participant in guilt and shame. I'm just sharing that to show you it is possible for you. You can get to the other side. So when you introduce compassion in that moment, you're reassuring yourself there's nothing wrong with you. I'm here to give you that love that you're seeking, that validation you're seeking from other people. I am fully present here with you. That is how you can heal the wound of shame, by being present for yourself in that moment, that when you're feeling guilty. And if there's something going on which is a really big problem, for example, if you never do things on time, and that is creating problem in your work, it's creating problem in your life, and then you feel guilty about it, and it's really impacting your life itself, and you really want to change. That's when you can talk to an expert, a behavior expert. You can talk to somebody like me. You can go for therapy, and you can really come up with a plan what to do different, but still not introduce guilt and shame, because that means something needs to change. You're not either supported, you are either doing something that you don't really enjoy doing. But because we are used to pushing ourselves, you're just pushing yourself. You're like, no, do it, do it. I know I can do it. And then you don't do it and you feel guilty. So instead of creating that triangle between you and the things that you don't get done and then feeling guilt and shame, Maybe you just need to look at your life. Hey, am I really doing the things that I really want to? If I don't want to do that, what else can I do? But do not choose to go to the route of guilt and shame. Another thing, I'm just putting my notes in front of me so I don't miss anything. Another thing that is another concept, introducing that into your life is really going to help you detaching from guilt and shame. Because at this point, if you're an adult, it's an addiction. It's a behavior addiction where we go, is really focusing on acceptance, accepting yourself just the way you are, instead of giving it meaning or any labels. Let's say if right now I'm doing something and I didn't do a good job, let's just say from my standard, I didn't do a good job. And then I want to sit there and feel guilty about it and want to make myself feel ashamed about it. What's another way of being? So what could be another way of being where I am not feeling guilt and shame? So another way of being could be acceptance. Hey, that's just how I do it. That's just who I am. Instead of trying to mold myself into a different kind of box, accepting myself without giving any labels to it, without giving any meanings to what I am doing. Because usually when, let's say if I'm drawing a circle, very simple example, and the circle does not turn out to be perfect, I can sit there and I can feel shame and guilt about it, or I can just say, those are the kind of circles I draw. If the drawing a perfect circle, my life depends on it, then I need to practice, and learn from the experts who know how to draw a perfect circle and just learn it. We can learn anything. We are human. We are one of the highest creation that we know. We can learn anything. There's no need to go into guilt and shame and make ourselves feel bad when we are not doing something to the level or to the standard that we see ourselves doing, or the way we expect ourselves to do it, or maybe the way other people expect us to do it. So that is where you're going to start living with acceptance and compassion. So those are the two replacements for guilt and shame. Because when you accept yourself, you're not going to say that, there's something wrong with me. You're not going to say there's something wrong with me. You're just going to accept yourself just the way you are. When you introduce compassion, it doesn't matter if you did something wrong or not. You can forgive yourself. So compassion is the opposite of guilt, that you can, another thing that you can plug into within yourself and you can nurture it. The more compassion you're going to have for yourself, the less guilty you're going to feel, more acceptance you're going to have for yourself, less shameful you're going to feel. And again, once again, I am teaching this from my own personal experience, where there was a time I felt a lot of guilt, a lot of shame. And now I'm at a point where the other people, I interact with, I'm talking about our family members or friends, or, our own little clan that we all have. And unknowingly, unconsciously, I see other people bringing in guilt and shame. And because this is something I have worked within myself, I can see it a mile away, and I can stay untouched by it. It's a very different experience of living. And that is something I'm inviting you to. Well, how you can do it when you are feeling guilty or you're experiencing shame, stay in that moment, pay attention to what's going on in your mind, catch yourself, and then introduce acceptance, introduce there's no safety, what's kind of safety I'm looking for, and introduce compassion for yourself. And you're going to see that pretty soon you're not going to be able to manipulate yourself or others, or let others manipulate you using guilt and shame. So this brings us to end of our topic today. Again, if you have any question, please reach out to me. If you struggle with guilt and feeling shame about anything you have done in your past, or generally anything that is going on within you, I would love to take you on a journey where you can release all this within you. And you're going to live at a very different level. You're going to experience each and every moment in a very different way. So if that is something that you're ready for, reach out to me. If you don't know how to find me, just Google Alia, the Love Coach, and you'll be able to find me. And I'm looking forward to take you on that journey. I'm sending a lot of love to all of you. And I didn't realize this was our first love circle in the new year. So happy 2023 to everyone who's watching. And I will see you next Thursday. Love you. Bye.